You get invited to the island and people start getting their heads chopped off. You get invited to a party and people start getting strangled to death. I don't know who's unluckier, this kid or the people who keep inviting him to these things. Hello everybody and welcome to my review of volume number 2 of the Zaregoto series, Strangulation Kubishime Romanticist. This one by Nisioisin, of course, of Monogatari fame. This book is released in English by Vertical. If you'd like to pick up a copy, I do have links to Amazon and the Book Depository in the description down below. Now, this is actually kind of an interesting story because it was released in English by Del Rey a number of years ago. So if you're looking on Amazon and you see a cover other than this one, it's probably the Del Rey release. Vertical's since acquired the rights, and what they did was they took Del Rey's translation and then sort of edited it, went through it again, cleaned it up a bit, and now have released their own version. And fingers crossed, maybe we'll get the rest of this series, I hope, because this one was even better than Decapitation, I'll be really honest. So the main gist of this one is that it's about a month or so after the whole events on the island, and our nameless narrator, which we will just call Ai-kun, or Ai-chan, depending on who he's dealing with, is starting in college. He's in college, and he is approached by one of his classmates who invites him to a party, to a gathering of her friends. This book picks up about a month or so after the events on the island in Decapitation. Our nameless narrator, Ai-kun, is approached by a classmate named Mikoko, and she invites him to a birthday party of one of his other classmates. Now, Ai-kun isn't exactly the most observant individual, or he has a fairly bad memory for people. He doesn't even realize that these people are his classmates. But nonetheless, there's something about the invitation that intrigues him, and so he attends. Well, I mean, the title's called Strangulation, so something bad happens to somebody at that party. And so, of course, we have our mystery begin, a whole murder mystery once again, Ai-kun getting wrapped up into it just the same way as he did in Decapitation. In addition to this whole thing, there's also a series of brutal knife slayings going on in the city, and Ai-kun actually finds himself come face to face with this serial killer, the individual Hitoshiki Zerozaki. Now, Zerozaki, well, he and Ai-kun kind of hit it off. It's kind of an interesting story. You know what? Let's get right into this, because I'm going to start off by saying something right off the bat. As far as a mystery type novel, I don't think this is the greatest book. I kind of felt like the motivation behind the events was a little weak and wasn't really expressed in a way that made me fully buy it come the end of the book. Now, you may think that that means that this book is terrible, but actually, if you approach this book from a completely different way, it's really excellent. And that is to not look at this so much as a murder mystery novel. The murder mystery itself is basically just a mechanic to allow for the character of Ai-kun to be deconstructed, reconstructed. I have to admit, I've been thinking about how to put it, because in Decapitation, Ai-kun seemed to be this sort of passive observer, this individual that was kind of removed from events. And in a way, it made him feel a little bit wishy-washy as a character. You read this book, and we get a lot more in-depth into Ai-kun's psyche. We get a lot more information about who this person really is and what kind of ideals and morals he prescribes to. And the whole thing with Zerozaki. I mean, this is very much a Nisioisin book. It's kind of interesting that this is one of the first series that Nisioisin ever wrote. And yet, reading like Monogatari and even the later volumes of Monogatari, there are so many things that there are similarities with Nisioisin that just have not stopped. We have a very self-deprecating main character who takes lots of opportunities to point out his faults and his failings. But really, that's kind of like where the whole thing between Araragi and Aikun ends. But we do have a lot of other things in here. For instance, Zerozaki is kind of used as a foil, a sort of a character who we learn a lot about our main character by observing this other character and the interactions of the main character with this other character. Uh, you know, it really is about sort of a self-discovery, but we are the ones who are discovering the self. And unlike Decapitation, where with Decapitation, I kind of felt like, I mean, I liked Decapitation a lot, and you can watch my review of it. I did enjoy it quite a bit. But the thing about Decapitation that kind of bothered me a little bit was that as much as the end was ending, and then all of a sudden we have this sort of epilogue, and we basically get this twist that just seemed to be kind of like it wasn't out of nowhere, but it didn't really feel necessary. It almost, well, like, I mean, I think half of the thing with this series is that it is to sort of say that regardless of how intelligent Aikun is, regardless of how much progress he seems to make in solving these things, that really his efforts are kind of in vain at the end. And in Decapitation, that really kind of hit home. This one, there is twists at the end, but they are twists that I think work far, far better. You know, the best twists at the end of a book, to me, are the ones that then make you think about everything that you've read and everything that you've experienced through the book, and you suddenly see it through new eyes. And you realize that it completely works, that the information you've now found out through this twist, that it completely works throughout the entirety of the book and makes the book a totally different experience. And that is what happens with Strangulation. It is a much more effective twist at the end. And it does so much to change the book. And actually, and like I said, with Decapitation, it kind of felt like a little bit of a cheap shot, I thought. But in this one, I thought, wow, like this elevates the book. It actually makes the book better, in my opinion. So, you know, this is, I really, you know, it's like a niche, of course it's a Nisioisin book. I mean, there's tons of dialogue, you know, lots of dialogue. Like if you're looking for something that's action packed, you're certainly not really going to get it. You know, there are some violent scenes, obviously, but I mean, the majority of this book is very much driven by the characters. But I found in this one that, you know, I think that's the thing, is that in this one I found that Aikun was actually a really compelling character. I found myself really invested in this book, and it really wasn't because of the murders per se and trying to figure out like the murders themselves. It was more my investment in this character and in what this was doing to him, and what he was thinking in his own head, and he and his interactions with this serial killer. It was fascinating in a lot of ways. And like I said, I struggled with the whole idea of whether this is like a deconstruction, a reconstruction. I kind of think that it's not really deconstructing per se, because this is still the same character that we had in Decapitation. I wouldn't say that he's so different that it doesn't still ring true as being the same character. I think the difference is that we just didn't have the opportunities to truly see who he was in Decapitation. And now in Strangulation, because of these sort of different foils that we have in other characters and his interactions with them, we are seeing the character for who he truly is. And he's fascinating. You know, and I think the other thing that I like about this book is that there's really no tropish type characters. You know, you can take a look and sort of say that there's pieces of stereotypical type characters in them, but they are all very unique individuals, and there are aspects that, as you go through the book, that are revealed about these characters that changes your opinion so wildly. Like, I really liked this book a lot because of that. I liked that it was a different reading experience. As I said, it's definitely a Nisioisin book, but it still feels considerably different than the Monogatari series. And I think it's because it's populated by very different characters, and the narrator is, as much as he has, you know, that whole penchant for, you know, slagging on himself that Araragi does, he's still wildly different than Araragi. I mean, Araragi is the person who can't help but get involved in situations, whereas Aikun is like the passive observer. He's more than happy to sit back and not get involved in all. And it's a really good book. Like I said, if you're reading it for the mystery aspect, I think it isn't that strong. If you're reading it for a interesting character study of its main character, it's the main character's mystery that I think is the mystery that is interesting in this novel. It's the main character's motivations and thoughts and ideas that are the driving sort of question in your mind as you read through the book. I think that is probably the best way to put it, is that the mystery isn't the murders. The mystery is Aikun himself. And if you read the book in that sense, I think it is incredibly satisfying. And again, you know, like I said, I think it's kind of going in eyes wide open. You know, the murder stuff is, I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's a horrible mystery or anything. I'm just saying that I kind of felt like that wasn't the point. That the point was the journey of Aikun, and that I found very, very satisfying. So with that in mind, if you're walking into this book with, I think, those set expectations, I think you'll really, really enjoy it. If you're looking for, like, you know, a really intense murder mystery that is going to shock and everything else as you go, I think you might be a little disappointed in the murder mystery aspect of the book. So those are my thoughts on volume number 2 of Zaregoto, the Strangulation Kubishime Romanticist by Nisioisin. My next read is actually going to be kind of interesting. It is a new series, so it's a new volume number 1, but it's also from a new company, Soul Press, and that is going to be Battle Divas. I mean, from the cover, you kind of probably get an idea. But I will say that I've already started reading it, and it's better than I expected. So that will be my next review. So if you love light novels and you're brand new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.